Welcome to our deep dive, everybody. We're tackling some seriously cool stuff today.
Yeah.
Ancient civilizations. We're talking Egypt, Greece, Rome, and even venturing over to the Maya.
A lot to unpack.
Right. And we're going deep, not just the usual greatest hits, but like how their societies actually worked. The tech, the culture, all of it.
It's remarkable how much these civilizations, though separated by, oceans and centuries, how much they still resonate with us today.
Absolutely. And, one civ that really wanted to make sure we remember them were those ancient Egyptians. I mean, talk about making a statement. Those pyramids.
Yeah, you don't just stumble upon those accidentally.
Exactly. And we're talking, 10-ton stone blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And they're moving these things with copper tools. Your research said something about ropes.
It's mind-boggling, the manpower, the sheer will it took. Imagine tens of thousands of laborers, all driven by this belief system where the pharaoh's like a god king.
And the afterlife is everything.
Right, this monumental effort, all geared towards ensuring a smooth transition to the next life.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just brute force. I mean, their grasp of geometry, astronomy, light years ahead of their time.
You think they just kind of eyeballed the pyramids with the stars?
Not a chance. We're talking meticulous planning here. The alignment of those structures.
Allie.
Deliberate, reflecting sophisticated astronomical observation.
Okay, but hold on. We got to talk mummies. It's one thing to build for eternity, but they took preserving the body, well,
to another level, right. But it's more than just the physical body. Those elaborate rituals, the amulets, it all points to this incredibly complex belief system about the soul's journey after death. What blows my mind is their understanding of anatomy. Sure, not always accurate, but they developed embalming techniques that frankly worked.
it's true. Way ahead of the curve on that one.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what else they could figure it out if they weren't so focused on, well, not dying.
Every civilization has its priorities, I suppose.
Okay, before we get completely lost in ancient Egypt, let's hop over to another civilization, obsessed with a different kind of forever, ancient Greece. Birthplace of democracy, right? And some serious thinkers.
Right. But what's fascinating about Greece is that it wasn't this massive unified empire like Egypt. Think more like a network of independent city-states, each with its own vibe, its own political structure.
It's like Athens, the birthplace of democracy, versus Sparta with their warrior culture.
Exactly. Complete opposites in many ways. Yet they shared a common cultural heritage, language, their pantheon of gods. Goes to show, civilizations, they're rarely one-size-fits-all, more like a tapestry of different threads all woven together.
Speaking of weaving, one of the sources mentioned Greek women and these incredibly detailed tapestries they'd create on looms, some depicting myths, even scenes from daily life.
It's amazing, right? And those tapestries, they're like little windows into their society. The way women are portrayed, for example, challenges that old idea that they were completely isolated. We see them participating in festivals, practicing crafts, even managing households.
It's like piecing together a puzzle, these everyday objects suddenly telling you a whole story. And speaking of puzzles, we can't talk about ancient Greece without, their obsession with knowledge, philosophy. I mean, this is Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. These names are still taught everywhere today.
And for good reason. Their contributions, philosophy, math, astronomy, literature, groundbreaking stuff. And what's really cool is they were wrestling with the same big questions we still ask. What is justice? What does it mean to live a good life? What even is reality?
Deep stuff. Okay, before we get too philosophical ourselves, let's get back to something a little more kind of tangible. Bronze, maybe. Expert. Tell me about the Antithera mechanism. Every time I read about this thing, it just blows my mind.
Talk about a lesson in, well, not underestimating the past. You find this corroded lump of, turns out, bronze in a shipwreck, right? And it's not just any old artifact. It's a sophisticated astronomical calculator. Centuries ahead of its time, really makes you rethink what they knew back then.
Like finding a working iPhone in, I don't know, King Tut's tomb or something.
Pretty much.
What gets me is it's all gears and dials. The precision involved, even replicating it today would be a feat.
Speaks to a whole other level of mechanical mastery. And their understanding of the cosmos, not just pretty lights in the sky. This thing tracked celestial movements, eclipses, even accounted for the moon's wonky orbit.
Okay, gotta ask, who figures this stuff out? Like, what kind of brain power are we talking? Didn't your research mention a guy, Archimedes, doing some crazy stuff back then?
Archimedes. Talk about a Renaissance man way before the Renaissance. This guy was the embodiment of that Greek thirst for knowledge. Math, physics, engineering, even dabbled in a little astronomy on the side, it seems. His inventions based on, what? Leverage? Buoyancy, way ahead of their time, that's for sure.
So we've got a civilization debating philosophy in the public square, building these mind-blowing machines, just pushing the boundaries of knowledge left and right. Makes you wonder if they ever slept.
They probably pulled a lot of all-nighters in ancient Athens, that's for sure. But you're right, their legacy, it's huge. They laid the groundwork for so much of Western thought, science, you name it.
Foundations is a good segue, actually, because now we're moving on to a civilization that took that whole foundation thing pretty literally. Ancient Rome.
Yeah.
And listen, an empire that stretches from, what, the British Isles all the way to North Africa? They didn't conquer all that land by just sitting around pondering life's big questions.
The Romans were all about practicality. They understood that to control such a vast territory, to really exert their influence, you needed a strong infrastructure. Roads, aqueducts, these weren't just feats of engineering, they were statements.
Okay, let's talk roads for a minute. I mean, your research mentioned those things were built to last. Layers of gravel, concrete, then those perfectly fitted paving stones on top.
Durable, efficient, and strategically designed. Think about it. The straightness of Roman roads, not just for aesthetics. It allowed for rapid troop movement, crucial for maintaining control over such a vast empire.
Like their version of the interstate highway system. And then you've got the aqueducts, which talk about taking indoor plumbing to a whole new level, huh? Gravity-powered water on a massive scale.
Essential for a growing population like Rome's, of course. But the aqueducts, they represent so much more than just fresh water. Public baths become social hubs. Access to clean water, a way to reinforce the power and prestige of Rome itself.
It's incredible how something as basic as water, right, can have such ripple effects throughout a society.
The Romans were masters of that. Take the Colosseum, for example. Sure, it's a gladiatorial arena, but look closer. It's a symbol of Roman might, a tool for social control. Offer these spectacles of violence free of charge to the masses. It distracts from political unrest, reinforces the authority of the ruling class.
It's easy to forget that even the most impressive structures, they always have a story. A purpose beyond just, well, looking impressive.
Always a story.
And speaking of stories that have stood the test of time, the Roman legal system, that wasn't too shabby either, right? Pretty influential even today.
Oh, absolutely. Roman law, with its emphasis on written codes, legal principles, it's the bedrock of countless legal systems today. Concepts we take for granted, citizenship, property rights, even that whole innocent until proven guilty thing, it all traces back to those Roman robes and scrolls.
Mind-blowing. To think that a civilization from so long ago could have such a lasting impact, It does make you wonder, though, with the Romans, with the Greeks, it's like we're only scratching the surface, isn't it?
Archaeology is like that, always another layer to uncover. Just recently, there were excavations near the Colosseum, and guess what they found? This whole network of tunnels, chambers beneath the arena floor. We're still piecing it all together.
See, always another layer. Speaking of which, ready to cross the Atlantic. Because we've got one more civilization to explore today, and this one is often misunderstood. The Maya.
The Maya really highlight how incredibly diverse these ancient civilizations were. While the Romans are building their empire, halfway across the world you have the Maya flourishing in the Americas. And their art, their architecture, their whole way of seeing the universe, totally unique.
Their astronomy was off the charts. They had this crazy complex calendar system, right? Like not just tracking days and months, but planetary cycles, even predicting eclipses, am I right?
The Maya calendar wasn't just about keeping track of appointments, it was a reflection of their entire worldview. This cyclical understanding of time, humanity's place in the cosmos, it permeated everything. Their cities, for instance, were often designed in alignment with celestial events. Astronomy wasn't just a science to them, it was woven into the very fabric of their existence.
Like they saw the universe as this giant clock, and they were determined to figure out all the... Or just stargazing all day, right? I mean, these were impressive builders, these cities they built, often in really challenging environments too, the middle of the jungle.
The Maya were incredibly resourceful. They had to be. They developed incredibly sophisticated agricultural techniques, raised fields, terraced farming, all to make the most of what they had. And their water management systems, essential for supporting those urban centers, especially in a region not exactly known for its, shall we say, consistent rainfall.
So we've got a civilization that's innovative, they're in tune with their environment, they build these magnificent cities, and yet, ultimately, the Maya civilization collapses. What happened?
Yeah, it's a real head-scratcher, isn't it? The Maya collapse. Archaeologists are still trying to piece it all together, and it probably wasn't just one thing, but a whole bunch of factors colliding at once.
So what are the leading theories then? What does our research say might have gone wrong?
Well, one big one is environmental. They were so good at farming, so successful for so long, that it might have actually backfired, like they pushed their environment too far.
You mean like deforestation,
Ugh.
wearing out the soil, that kind of thing?
Exactly. And over time, that takes its toll. Suddenly, you can't support the population you once did. Crops fail, people go hungry, things get unstable.
A good reminder that even the most advanced societies can't ignore Mother Nature forever.
It's a lesson we seem to have to relearn every few centuries or so.
True enough. So, environmental collapse, that's one theory. What else?
Well, then you've got good old-fashioned political turmoil, competition for resources, for power. It's a tale as old as time, right? City-states warring with each other, further weakening the whole civilization.
It's like the saying, right?
Yeah.
Divided they fall.
It's rarely one isolated incident, though. More like a domino effect. One thing weakens the system, then another, and another, until boom.
Makes you think.
It does, doesn't it? This idea that even the most brilliant civilizations, they're not invincible.
Wow. So here we are at the end of another deep dive, and man, we've covered some serious ground today. We talked about the Egyptians and their, obsession with building for eternity, those pyramids.
Right. Talk about an undertaking.
And then there were the Greeks with their never-ending quest for knowledge, philosophy, those incredible inventions like that anti-Caesar mechanism still blows my mind.
They were definitely onto something.
And then you've got the Romans, the ultimate builders. I mean, those roads, the aqueducts, still functional today in some places. It's incredible.
A testament to thinking for the long haul, that's for sure. Not just what worked in the moment, but what would last.
And finally, we journeyed over to the Americas, explored the mysteries of the Maya, their calendars, their cities, their relationship with the cosmos.
Totally different part of the world, different time even, and yet so much ingenuity.
That's the thing that gets me about studying ancient civilizations, I guess. They're also unique, but there's this common thread, this desire to innovate, to build, to make their mark on the world.
To be remembered.
Exactly. And whether it's a pyramid or a philosophy or a perfectly engineered road, these things, they're still here. We're still talking about them thousands of years later. It makes you think, what will our legacy be? What will future civilizations say about us?
That's the question, isn't it?
Well, on that note, I think we've given our listeners plenty to ponder today. A huge thank you to you for digging into all this with me. This has been an amazing journey.
Anytime.
And to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and we'll catch you at our next deep dive.